Okay. So what you just saw was me using the backing plate that holds that input seal to set the bearing's depth. So that I can measure preload. I know I said I was going to have a video coming out more often, more like a stream of consciousness thing, but it's been like 3 or 4 weeks, and I've destroyed two of these seals, and the only way I can manage to do this myself and not destroy this seal is to pull the end of the axle off. So that's what we're doing now. I've got my gasket here. Put that on. Let's see here. Line that up again. The bottom two are blind holes. This is the passenger side, so the vent is going to go on the front and route to the back. Locking tab is going to go there. And because these are all through holes, we're using Loctite 545 thread sealant. It's already shaken, but we're going to shake it some more. I've had an absolute bear of a time getting these put together just because I keep wrecking this seal. And it's not even the seal that I keep wrecking. It's the spring inside the seal. The axle will pop out enough to catch it and just rip it out and pinch it enough that it tears it apart. So that's why there hasn't been an episode for a while, because I have been extremely frustrated and disheartened. It's hot today, guys. It's finally summer in Oregon. We're probably 80-degree temps 3 days after an entire 2-month span of non-stop rain. So hi, here we go. We're end of June going into July, so I've got a month and a half, we'll call it, to have the front end put back together, get the brakes put back together, and get the engine running again. Bodywork's obviously not going to be done. Rear end is a lot simpler to pull apart than the front end because you don't have CV joints and everything, so I'll probably pull the cases off and just do a quick inspection. I know for a fact my rear end needs the freeze plugs here in the back of the gears replaced because it's leaking out around the bolt. And it probably needs new seals in the portal cases. But those are much quicker jobs. Even if it needs bearings, honestly, I'll just slap it back together and run it for Mogfest. That's my goal. It's running. Not done, but running and driving by Mogfest. So, here we go.
You know, people that were 8 or 9 years old, like 3rd graders, whenever we first started doing front line.
Alright, over here at the shop press, and the first thing I do is forget to push record. So, I've got the inner bearing on, that's it. Go ahead and put the gear on some way. Let's see here. There you go. They're kind of finicky, you got to really line it up precise. And then the small taper bearing. Inside taper bearing faces out, or inside taper bearing faces in towards the differential, outside taper bearing faces out towards the wheel. And let's see here. I think I mentioned it in the other one, in my other clips, but the gears will face so that the big gears teeth are pointing back towards the middle of the truck for the front axle and pointing forwards towards the middle of the truck for the rear axle. And then the whole reason you need to assemble this stack up and get it torqued together is because you need to get it all set in here, and you need to measure your height from, I believe, the machined flange for the portal case to the end of the cap for your bearing, or the shoulder, the bearing race here. And the reason for that is because these are taper bearings, you have to set preload on them. So you're measuring that and comparing it against the depth you measure in your portal case. Give it a little bit of pressure, make sure it's fully seated, and then back it right off. These are press fit. I just used a socket, but because of the way I did this now, I can handle it well enough that I'm not going to tear up this input seal. I don't have the whole weight of the axle pulling this thing sideways and turning it cockeyed. So there's a cap that goes on here. I don't believe they're available anymore, so you kind of have to make do with the ones you've got. Mine are cracked, but it seems pretty minor. Being that the bearing's a press fit, I'm not going to worry about it because it does still have a taper on here that should hold this in. But yeah, once you get that on, it's a not a Phillips, not an Allen, a flathead bolt. Use an impact driver to give it a little bit of torque, and then you'll peen over the edge where the slot is for the driver, and that's what will lock that screw in place. You probably could use Loctite. It's not really necessary for this part because once this stack up's assembled, it really shouldn't go anywhere. It's a tight enough press fit. So yeah, back over to the bench. To reduce my risk of upsetting this and ruining that seal again, I have it just clamped by the U-bolt in there, in the vise, and just hanging out over here. So I'll grab that cap and that screw, we'll get it torqued up and measure our depth. Just put a straight edge across it and use the calipers to get a measurement, and hopefully I'll have some shims that'll work. Seems like the only shims available anymore are 0.05 millimeter, if I remember correctly. Uh, 0.5 millimeter. They're a little dirty, and my calipers are Harbor Freight, so it says 0.53, but 0.50. You can get this stuff from McMaster-Carr if you do need other sizes. I got lucky, and my driver's side I was getting inconsistent readings, and I just averaged them, and this fell right in between the averages for both. So it's not too tight, it's not too loose. I have no detectable play in this setup. So we'll get the measurement here, grab the case, measure that, and get on with it. Oh, I forgot. It's got 3 little dimples. This one's been rebuilt before. Somebody's been in here. The bolt for this is the same as for drums. There's a tapered bolt, kind of standard. And this is an impact driver if anybody hasn't seen it before. Basically, it's got a cam in it, so that, let's get it down here where you can see. It has a cam motion in it. You can set it to loosen or tighten, left or right. When you smack it, it forces this down, which will twist this. It's great for flathead screws, stuff like that. That's kind of nice. I'll get to reuse one of the dimples. Let's see here. Where did I put my punch? Right there. There we go. Just dimpled that one slightly to push the metal out into that slot so that this can't work out. It's mechanically locked in. And the stack up is all good. It's all tight. Spins nice. I'll shoot a little bit of gear oil in there before I put the cover on. That looks terrible. Let's see if I can get some more weight. Yeah, that looks all right. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy, oh, pal. Here we go. All right. A couple days later, I got all my nuts and bolts. You can see that. All in there, all torqued. I ended up just replacing all of them. Yeah. The axle shaft is stuck back on the back. We're going to slide this back into the hub, or the knuckle. One thing to note, even if you have the tabs on your locking collar, lock the collar, like lock the diff when you pull the axle out, because the teeth on the collar may not or don't match the splines on the axle shaft. So you may end up sitting here twisting and turning this thing, trying to line the back up so you can get the axle through the collar and into the diff. I got lucky and I didn't have to do that. I've been here once already. So there we go. We're going to slide this in. We're going to have to roll it over. There we go. Don't worry about that paint. It's going to get more later. Man, a crane sure would be helpful here. But instead, we're just going to be stubborn and manhandle it. And I did shoot some gear oil on this seal and on that bushing. I don't like how my gear oil looks muddy when it came out of a clean container, but that's fine. That is fine for right now. Oh man, these seals are tight when you put it back together. There we go. All right. lining up the axle shaft with the hole on the other end of the tube. It's there somewhere. Come on. Oh, I've done it before. I'll do it again. Oh, closer. That it? There we go. Alright. And now I'm hitting those teeth. So we're gonna rotate ever so slightly as I try to push it in. These cast parts are really heavy, by the way. There we go. There. In. And if I twist this side, the other side turns opposite. So I'm in the diff, I'm in the housing, or in the locking collar. We're in. Now for some bolts. And Loctite. Alright, here's the part that I've been dreading because I do not have the tool to make this install easy. So what I've done is cook the spindle, get it up to about 200 degrees. The Buna end seals are good to about 250, so under temperature that would damage it. And we're gonna try and slide this on real quick. That went on way further than the other side. Where's my block of wood? Jack the nimble, Jack the quick. Jack, whack it before it cools off. This is working fantastic compared to yesterday. And it's done. I made it way further than I did yesterday. Yesterday I had probably an inch to go. I still probably have about an inch to go, maybe 3/4, but it's way closer. I spent 3 hours just hammering away with the 6-pound sledge trying to get this thing on yesterday. But I did it. That's what I get for not having the correct tool. But you make do with what you got. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there it is. This side took me about 15 minutes. And like I said, all I did was heat the spindle up with I didn't even use a blowtorch. I used an electric heat gun. Like a giant, like a hairdryer on steroids. I just heated it up as evenly as I could. I rotated it and let it blow on different parts. Got it to right around 200 degrees, right under 190, 180. Stuck it on. It went on about halfway by itself. And it took me maybe a few turns of this thing and whacking on it with the 6-pound sledge to slide it on the rest of the way, and there it is. I should have done this to that side, because that side took me about 3 hours straight of hammering away at it. But it's on there, it's fully seated, it's done. That's been the difficult side so far. That's the side, driver's side. The stud broke off. I had a bunch of screws yield. That's the side that I munched 2 seals on before taking the axle apart to install it on this side so I could install it in smaller, lighter pieces. Yeah. Alright, small stuff.